So welcome to the session. I hope that you remember that today's session is primarily going to be based on some very interesting aspects on social engineering, and to be more specific with the points and issues that you have raised in the previous session, the topics that you have given me. So today the session is primarily going to be based on the topics. So as I told you, it's going to be an interactive session. So it's better if you just turn on the camera so that we begin this session. If you have a proper internet connection, and based on that, this session is going to be based upon interactions as well as the explanations on the given topics.
Honestly, I can try to turn on my camera, but the internet here is not very
Okay, no issues.
strong.
No issues. Then we can begin with the session right away. Okay. So now let's me take you to the first part. So I hope that the screen is now being shared, and now we are gonna start off with the first phase of the explanation. To begin with, as we know that the basic core concepts of social engineering has already been told to you in the previous session. Now, why I'm using this term social engineering? It is because, as you know, all these factors together that we had been learning till now, the processes of cultural diffusion, culture, races, ethnicities, all these together play a very vital and crucial role in determining that how the society is going to be manipulated or configured in the future. So that is why it can be very easily be termed as a form and aspect of social engineering. So today, the topic that is going to be primarily being discussed on is the concepts of ethnocentrism, the concepts of cultural ecology, the problems of demographic trap, and acoustics. So what are they? We are going to be knowing them one by one, and we are also going to try to establish an interrelation between them, that how these aspects are interrelated with one another. So to begin with, so we are going to start off with ethnocentrism. So could you please tell me that how did you come across this topic? How did you come across this topic in the first place?
First of all, I've been watching a lot of videos on the real life issues that the world is currently facing, and I saw it in one of the videos there.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about it, that what role does it play in our society or in our lives? What is this ethnocentrism? So how can it affect our perceptions, to be more open in this regard? So firstly, as you can see, it can affect the cultural ecology, which is a very important, I would say, substrata to understand in this form, which is understanding the relationships between the culture and the environment. Because we know the entirety of human beings are actually working under an ecology where there are lots of cultures, lots of races, lots of ethnicities, they are living together. So this together can be termed in as a ecology or an environment of culture under which so many varieties are living together. The next aspect that we can talk here is on the demographic trap, that is actually a consequence that happens due to rapid population growth. So we are going to be knowing about them in details in the future. Now coming to the next important highlight of today, that is acoustics, which is generally the science of human settlements. And by breaking down the barriers, we are also going to know about how to overcome this ethnocentrism and how we can foster on the cultural understandings. So overall, we can predict the future of human settlements by addressing the challenges of demographic trap and cultural ecology. So these are going to be the major agenda for today's session. So now we are going with the first part, that is the explanation part for ethnocentrism and how is it affecting us. So first of all, this terminology of ethnocentrism is nothing but the tendency to view one's own culture to be superior than others. I know that this is a very relevant topic if we consider today, because just in the previous session, I hope you remember, we were talking on the burning issue of Manipur, where we had highlighted that how one tribe was thinking themselves to be superior to the other, and how conflicts had just come into place because of this superiority complex. So we can term it as a superiority complex, and it is just based upon the, I would say, the dogma of thinking that I am better than others or we are better than others. So based upon this, this actuality starts. And now we will see what does it lead to. Like this can lead to a distorted perception about others' culture. Like you know that there are certain cultures or certain specific religions, even in our society, which are very, I would say, wrongly thought about, or very, I would say, we have a very biased opinion on them. We have certain conceptions that are very rigid. Like, to be more open with you, can you name about a practical situation that is actually happening in our society?
Although it is not way too relevant right now, or it is very easily visible, but Varna system, that Brahmanas are above everyone else. It is still being kind of followed. Like they are better than all the indigenous people, all those belonging to the scheduled caste that government has, set up. It is still believed that they are somehow or the other better than him, than the other people, and it is still very prevalent in areas like UP and um, Bihar, where honor killing is still an honor killing on pettiest of reasons is still prevalent.
So, right in that regard, but to correct you, I need to also give you one real fact on this matter, that this fact that is often a lot talked about, especially because it is about a majority. And I just explained you in the previous session that how being a majority is actually being termed in as a crime, specifically in India. So, being a majority is actually not a crime, but you need to be very factual about certain things, like the Varna system you had mentioned. The Varna system, if we just actually study their history, I'm talking about the cultural history, there you will see that the Varna system was actually been introduced based upon occupations. It had nothing to do with good or bad. There were a certain category of people who used to do certain operations or certain occupations. Based on that, we can say that a title was reference to that community, that this group of guys are doing this work, so you will be termed as this. So then there were a group of people who used to do this rituals, who used to stay in the temples, who used to look after the propagation of religion. They were termed in as the Brahman group. As you know, there were certain groups of people who used to look after the business of the place, who were traders, who used to make in commodities and look for the import and exports. They were termed as the tradesman group. They got their own name. There were a certain group of people that is very essential in any society, that is about the laborers, or the people who do the actual, I would say, the rough work or the hard work. So they also had their place. So based on that, they got their names. Now, the problem of the Varna system is actually nothing to do with this categorization. We often make a mistake that we think that this categorization is wrong. No, the categorization is not wrong, because it is nothing but just giving you a terminology of you belong to this occupational group. The problem had actually arisen when it had become a process that would be followed by the generations. Like if you are a priest, your son will be a priest. If you are working in a field, your son will also work in a field. If you are a miner, your son will be a miner. If you are a tradesman, your son or daughter will have to be following the same occupation. It is from this area where the problem had arisen, where people who were actually more capable were not getting chances into the other occupations. So there the conflict started. So our Varna system was not at all illogical. This is all about the brainwashing that I often keep talking about, these European classes, that they had done this brainwashing in our community and in our civilizations for these hundreds of years that they had been ruling us, that we are a inferior race, we are people who had been following old processes, who were very unscientific, our culture was not that civilized, so they are our saviors. So it is just to project that they had created these ideas in us. We do not have the correct idea about our own religion, about our own culture. We just depend upon their perspective. That is why this opinion that you had just put out, it's a very wide scale and believable opinion that is considered in Indian civilization today, which I feel very sad about. But we generally don't like to go into the details. Like now, if we go for this part that we were in now, that's the ethnocentrism or thinking yourself to be superior than the other. So if we give a very valid example, so we can use the Western culture, which may often practice arranged marriages in certain Eastern culture. They view this arranged marriage to be backward and oppressive without understanding the historical and the culture behind it. So, like say, you remember that we also had a chat on this over, I would say, dependence on foreign culture and the way we have been trying to imitate them. We think that their cultural processes are right and our are age old. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
So in that way, there is a common trend, especially in the Southeast Asian countries, India being one of them. We always look up to the West. We think that the way they have been formulating in their society, like, see, the things like broken marriages, the things like multiple marriages, the things like, I would say, uh, you can say that not being able to believe in the institution of marriages, this is very common and prevalent over there, and I have nothing to say against that. It can be totally about a culture's or a person's personal opinion on it, but you should not levy your ideas upon everybody. You should not do that because certain group of people are thinking that marriage is illogical, that having a child is actually a burden, so you should make that all the entire world follow the same formulation. I'm not a believer of that. So it is happening in India. See, what is the actual outcome of these Western societies that we look up to today? If we just look at, just like, let's take America. They consider themselves to be a very progressive society. Look at their families today. Hardly there is any, I would say, cohesion or there is any perspection in the long run. There are so many fragmented families that you can see all over if you just study the demography of America or any Western countries. You see there is hardly any, I would say, that kind of a cultural or a familiar bond that is present between them. It's a very common thing in America that once a student or a child is above 15-16 years age, then mostly he moves outside. He begins to see the life on his own perspective, and there is a common tendency among the students or the people or the teenagers of that age to work outside so that they can build up their own life, their own strata, and move away from family. It's very common over there. But in India, if you see, we in India still are carrying this age old, I would say, policy or belief of staying in a joint family. Even if we go into certain parts of our country, we can still see people living in huge families, joint families, believing in the cultures, believing in our old practices. I'm not saying that each and every old practice that is followed by us is correct or should be done. But what I'm saying is that staying rooted to your roots, that's very important. Even in many parts of India, you will see that there is actually an understanding that is developing in the society that we will not be able to stay in the long run for a very long period if we just follow another culture blindly. Do you think it's the right way out?
Certainly not.
So it's definitely important for us to take in some good aspects that has been done in our society since thousands of years. And let's not forget that our society or our culture is not about 500 or 1000 years or 2000 years. It's at least 8 or 9000 years old civilization, at least. We have a very, very long history and culture. So we must have been doing something that is right. That is why we are the oldest civilization living in the earth. There is no other civilization that you can look over that is as old as the Indian civilization. So there must be something that our ancestors were doing right. So we must know that, and we must believe in certain aspirations that we need to look forward to. So as you can see, ethnocentrism can lead to stereotyping, as you know, and it can also build up prejudices towards other culture as well as lack of empathy and understanding. By recognizing own biases and being open to learning about other cultures, we can actually overcome ethnocentrism and foster greater cultural understanding of this problem. So it's very important for us to give space for others' opinions. That's the actual point that I'm trying to raise. That's the biggest issue that is happening in many parts of the world today, that we are not being open to listen to others' opinion. We think that we are already at a good place and we are doing better. So why is the other person not listening to us? But an open discussion, an open platform should be there which if not maintained, you can see what can happen. Just look at Manipur. Just look at Manipur. Always this burning problem of Manipur is coming into many of our conversations, because you can see that our learnings, our topics that we are learning is so much closely related to certain perspectives that's happening in the Northeast. So that is why Northeast is often being highlighted in our sessions. So what's happening actually there? They are also, to some extent, which I believe, they are also going through a process of ethnocentrism. Don't you think so? Yes. Don't you believe that even Manipur is going through a problem of ethnocentrism to some extent? Absolutely. Because though there are certain restrictions, I believe that some of the tribes are actually in a bad place. They do not have the rights or the power to fight back. But still, I believe that this constant race and tussle between these three tribes that is happening, that I am superior to the other, my ancestors were the actual people and your ancestors are not. This constant fight that has been happening over hundreds and hundreds of years, that's actually resulting in a conflict that we are seeing today, and which is further being highlighted by some foreign powers that we had talked in the previous session. So now the situation is, it's almost out of control in Manipur. Now the next part that we are going to talk about, that's rather more easy and simple, I believe, and that's cultural ecology. And here we are going to understand the relationship between culture and the environment. So do you believe culture and environment are interrelated? Absolutely integrated in defined what we can use to describe. Because culture, society, every little thing that human beings experience today is has been influenced and shaped by the environment that we live in. And environment relationship is the ultimate standpoint of any culture aspect or even human. So how can you say so? Can you give me a few historical examples? A relationship of culture and human beings. Yes, just simply establish the relation by showing me any civilization which has moved in hand with the environment. Moving hand in hand with the environment, we can one of the good aspects that we can look into is clothing. Clothing, reflects one's cultures, one's religions, beliefs, and everything along the lines. And it is heavily influenced by the environment they live in. Like, for example, if we take the Central Asian Arabian area specifically, to be specific, we can see that men, women alike wear, long robes and all, and they try to cover up most of their bodies. It is not due to the factor of modesty, as they have, as the term according to religion at most times. But yes. First and foremost, it is due to the weather there, the climate there. It is pretty harsh, hot, and if your skin gets exposed for a long duration of time, you are bound to get, melanoma or anything along the line, sunburns, anything. So definitely you're right in this regard that culture is not actually a result, but culture is totally dependent on environment. That means environment is the actual determinant. Why I'm saying so? You will find it in many civilizations if you take through their case history. Like now we are talking about the cultural ecology, which is simply the study of how human culture is interacting with the natural environment. Now, in this way, we can examine a few ways in which human beings are adapting themselves. The way you told that the wearing of these long burqas or covering up the bodies to stay away from sunlight, harsh sunlight or harsh weather. It's where from that the thing had started. But slowly, with the movability of culture, with new ideas, with new religions coming into perspective, now things began to, take their own shape, and people began to put in their own colors. And now, the thing is totally projected in a different manner. Like, which I often say in many of our sessions, I had told it before also, our fooding habits. Our fooding habits is also actually determined by culture. We the Bengalis, we are so much close to the water bodies, right? There is so many water bodies in and around West Bengal, so many rivers. So because of that, we are highly dependent on our fish for protein source. So we can say that we depend highly on fish as a part of our diet. While if you go to Rajasthan, If you go to Kashmir, you will not find that level of people who are liking fish. In spite, you will go there. When you will go there, you will see that people actually avoid fish. People actually stay away from fish, and they also have their own ideas about people who eat fish. They are unhygienic or many concepts like that, like the way we do, like the way we the people who are actually living in a part of our country believe that a person who is sitting in a different location of our country, he has his own food habit. We determine that no, it is not the right thing to do, because somebody in our religion had told that this, if you are eating this, you are actually not following our religion. Let's not forget that human beings are not that very, I would say, old species in our planet. Our planet is there since billions of years, and uh, it has gone through a long history. Many species has come in and gone. So it really does not matter that a certain small portion of human beings, what food they are eating, that the entire earth will collapse for that. We are really not that important. And this is one thing that I have highlighted many times, that human beings often overemphasize on their role. We are not that very important in the earth, which I consider that the earth has seen many bigger species. I believe even the present science studies are telling that there were even some species which are even intelligent than us before us, but there is not a single trace of them today. We cannot even have a single specimen to prove that these beings are there. And now we give many ideas like aliens. We give ideas. Some people have ideas like this demons. Some say they are ghosts. But what if they were actually a species who used to live on this earth before us, even before the dinosaurs were there? There were a species that were way more superior to us in terms of, I would say, intellectual. So what if? In science, nothing is impossible, but the only thing is that you have to have an open mind to think. Now the problem is that due to this over engaging, I would say, agenda that is going around us to make us believe things, that we are restricting ourselves. We are not keeping our mind open. There are certain things which we are completely moving our heads. We are not actually accepting them. So if you are not accepting certain ideas, how will be able to work on them? How will be able to prove them? Do you think it is possible if we completely reject an idea before saying it?
Absolutely not. And it is not even, we cannot guarantee that even after rejection, that idea is not valuable.
Yes, because there are so many theories in cultural geography also that were rejected in the first place, in the very first day when it came into existence, when somebody had told that this is a possibility, this is a phenomenon that can happen in future. People told you are a mad person. It is never possible. But when it actually happened, now we go back to that person saying him that he is the father of this and father of that. But you must say that at that period when a new idea had come into existence, people will go against the new person because you are going outside the belief. So people will go against you. That's very normal. Like say, you will be learning about a theory. I hope most probably in your upcoming semester that talks about a bit about geopolitics, which is a part I guess in your upcoming semesters. There is a theory given by a very interesting person in Germany, Ratzel theory. So he had given an idea. Let me tell you in brief that he believed that he was a German, okay, and he was doing this theory analysis during the time of World War II. So he had brought in this idea that actually Germany should engage in wars and acquire new territories so that they have more living space. They called it as Lebensraum or something like that. I'm not really remembering that term at this point of time, but they said that they should have an extra living space so that the German civilization can expand. And every big civilization he mentioned in his theory that should take new territories, should acquire big territories so that the civilization can be more powerful and the people have more space. And there is a very important term in his book also. He told that that about organic state. By organic, he meant that a state is a living body. Like say for instance, if I say West Bengal is a living body, and a living body should be able to move, we should not restrict it. So today, if West Bengal wants, it can take Nepal. tomorrow it can take a small chunk of I would say Myanmar, a small chunk of Arunachal. So we can do that because West Bengal is a living body. So it was about his theory, and based on his idea, that who was the person who had actually worked a lot on and made it into reality at World War II. I'm not naming that person. All of us are aware of him. So these are the things, these are certain ideas which can affect mankind to such a great extent that you can see. So this was about the cultural ecology perspective that we were talking about. And from the very beginning, I guess that you are very well accustomed to this idea that human beings must stay in close association with nature. If a civilization is not doing so, if a civilization is overexploiting its nature or trying to work against nature, it will not be able to stay in the long run. It's the true fact of nature. Like say, look at this very important tribe of Africa, the Maasai tribe. I hope you have learned about them many times.
Yes, sir.
So you know that when the Europeans were all over the continents, you know that two continents were worstly affected due to these Europeans. One being Africa, because they looted and plundered everything out of it. It was the most richest country that was possible in the future, but today all of us know where it is. What is the state of Africa today? It had all the minerals, all the riches, everything that is required by a country to progress, but it could go nowhere because of this plunder by these Europeans. And the other one was Asia. So these European, I would say, these explorers who call themselves as explorers, but they were actually working in as bandits or dacoits, we can say, were plundering people's properties. So they had these ideas about these tribes that they are uncivilized people, and if they are staying in this open space for a long period of time, they will harm nature, they will kill off the animals, there will be no biodiversity, they will take in important medicinal plants, so the earth will be devastated. So they put this theory into the minds of the world. So for that, a large amount of massacre happened for many African tribes, Maasai just being one of them. Huge massacres happened. Many of the tribes of Africa were wiped away by these Europeans. But today, when researchers are actually going to these tribes, because Maasai people, even today, they live in the same way they used to live, their ancestors used to live hundreds and hundreds of years ago. They have no change in their lifestyle. No change. Like even today, a Maasai will go out in the morning and will hunt in huge groups so that his family can feed. By family, I do not mean a family of two or three. By family, I mean the entire community which is under that headman will eat together. They have this custom. They go out to hunt together, they bring in the food together, they eat together. And because they have this culture of, when a new headman of a Maasai tribe is coming, they have this culture that if you want to be a headman, you have to kill a male lion.
Yes, sir.
If you do not do that, then your community will not, take you as the head. So they have this age-old belief system. So let's not go into the right or wrong. We are not here to judge that. But it has been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years. When the British people came, they told that how can a civilized person do this? It's completely wrong. So they stopped this tribe. For, I would say, not more than 30, 40 years, this entire custom was stopped. I mean, it was abruptly stopped. In result, what did they do, the Europeans? Average, the Maasai tribe used to hunt, we can say, in a matter of 100 years, if there were a shift of even we can say 30 at max heads, new heads, so 30 lions will be killed. So when these Europeans came, entire lion population, a huge amount of lion population was washed away from African continent. And they told that they were the conservers of nature by stopping this Maasai tribe. The problem of human beings is that we don't understand that we have to work in actuation with the nature. It is not that we have to stop everything from today. It is not that we have to stop going in bicycles. We have to stop using our bikes. We have to stop using our cars. We have to stop using our air conditioners. Things don't change in this manner. We have to work in a way so that even when we are using these items, we are also giving something back to nature so that the nature can replenish itself. This is the actual theory which should be taught. But the entire wrong theory was done there. As a result, we know that how things were hampered in every aspect. So the next thing that is being highlighted in today's session is the demographic trap. So what have you learned about this? Let's start with that, then I will go for the details. What is this demographic trap according to you?
Demographic trap, I have not read much, but
By trap, what do you know? What is a trap? What is it?
just
Yeah.
creating a situation from which unescapable situation.
Or a situation which cannot be reverted to, or a situation where you're stuck in. That is a trap. So, like, see this picture. What does this picture depict? This picture is actually an actualization or a picturization of the demographic trap. So, what does this picture denote to you, according to you?
Here, actually, here in the picture, we can see that although nature does exist between the modern human society, but it is being very much cornered and pushed down to its limits, like the river here. It is trapped and bordered by both sides of the high skyscrapers and buildings. And
So, here a broad demarcation, you're right, is shown here from the high skyscrapers to the small buildings. And in between, you can see that there is a river being flowing that is actually trying to increase its flow zone, but is being restricted by the making up of cities. Can you see that? That the cities are almost built on the bank, almost towards the mouth of a river flow zone. So if tomorrow you say there is a huge rainfall happening and the water levels increase, so where will this river go? It will flood the entire city, right? Because the city is restricting the river, and this is an actual situation in many cities today. If you go to the mountainous parts of India, you will see that most hill stations of India are actually going through this problem. That is this overbuilding of new infrastructure. It's making enough new roads, it's making enough new highways, making new tunnels. We are just plundering the nature in any way that we can. And all of us are, I don't know why we are surprised when we see these huge landslides, these huge earthquakes happening in hill stations so often these days. We are actually the reason. The nature is just, reacting to what we are doing. So we need to know that. Now coming to the demographic trap. The demographic trap is a phenomena that can happen in any country which experiences rapid population growth. Like, presently, which country in the world has the highest population?
India.
Exactly. We have just put behind China recently. And by that, let me tell you that China is also not in a very good situation, because they were some of the pioneers of the world, that they projected themselves as somebody who will really curtail down their population very quickly. And they were also going in that direction rapidly. Today, do you know what is the scenario of their population? Today, the average age of China is above 45 years, and it would be 55 years in the upcoming 10 or 15 years. So just imagine a country that is expressing itself to be the next superpower after America. Its average age is 55 years. Do you think that this civilization will be very strong in the upcoming future, in the near future?
No, no.
So this is an area where we need to think very closely on. We just tell very easily to small children, or we just see our political leaders tell in their rallies that we should stop population, we should decrease population. But you should also educate people what is the right way in which you will regulate your population. We should not decrease population, that is the wrong term. We should regulate population. Just the thing that China had done was decreasing of population. They had not regulated it. That is why today the entire demographic structure of China has collapsed. And there is no way that they can reverse it. It would take at least 100 years for them to reverse it, because they have just believed in this two-child policy. They had done so many stringent measures if there was an extra child born in a family. And today, see, can you believe, in the upcoming few generations, I mean in the next 20-25 years, there will be certain parts in our syllabus where we will study that why is Chinese population so low, why is Chinese population such a disaster. These are the topics that future generation students will learn, that we can understand from today. So can you believe today we are judging about the highest population countries, India and China, and one day it would actually become a falling population country. And by falling population, it's not always that it is a good sign. People always say that if there is low population, everything will be solved. No, India will be the pioneers of growth in the upcoming few years because of this high number of. I hope my voice is back.
Yes, sir.
Odrija, am I audible again?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Your voice is a bit lowered. Could you please increase your volume levels?
I have it is the fullest, and I do not know why this is happening, but I can listen to you clearly.
Your voice is not audible. You can rejoin the session if you want because the voice is lagging.
Am I audible now,
Use
sir?
your mic.
Am I audible?
Yes, use your mic now.
Yes, sir. I can listen to you clearly.
Your voice is not coming for some reason. I don't know. You can actually see there is a rise of frequency when you are talking, but your voice is not coming here. Okay, you can listen to me clearly. So let me cover the rest of the explanation that we were doing. Then we can see to this audio issue. So can I go on with the rest of the explanation? If you can hear me clearly. Okay then. So I'm going for it. So as I was saying that this overbelief of having a low population is actually not good for a civilization or a country, because just say for the Indian thing, that we are projecting that in the upcoming few years India will be the upcoming superpower, new superpower, in the upcoming, we can say in the next 20-30 years. It's just because of this youth population that we have. The average Indian population will be somewhere around 28 to 30. For this at least the upcoming 30-40 years we are going to maintain this ratio, and it's very evident that we are going to have a huge chunk of the world working population So naturally, our economy will be very well elevated by that time, and we will be able to see in how is India going to cope up with the world challenges. Now, the next part that we are going to know about is acoustics, or the science of human settlements. So it is all about, we can say, the structuring or the proper ideology in which the science of human settlements is working towards. So acoustics is the science of human settlements, which is actually studying the relationships between people and their built environment. So if we take into account a variety of factors before we build a civilization or a settlement, like culture, the geography of that area, the history, the economics of that zone, and we also need to understand how humans interact with their surroundings. Like, say, like I told you, the way the Maasais interact with their environment will definitely not be the same the way that the Kashmiris will do, or the way the Tamils do with their environment will definitely not be the same the way South Americans interact with their own nature. So we need to judge how people will be able to accustom to the nature around them. Based on that, these acoustics decisions are formulated. So the importance of acoustics is actually lying in its ability to provide the insight into how we can design or plan our cities and towns so that we can suit our needs in a more specific manner. So by understanding this interplay between these people and the environment, we can create more livable and sustainable places. Like, say, for example, an acoustics may approach, it can involve certain factors like public spaces, or to encourage the social interaction between people. We can also put more emphasis on the green infrastructure so that we can work on the problems of things like climatic change. So based on these factors, you know that Dubai is building a new residential complex or a residential city on its own, where an entire walking stretch is going to be believed and is going to be made on a skyline. So that entire skyline, people will be walking in that society for their morning or evening walks. It's an entire walking route made, at least I would say 80 or 90 feet above the ground, and you can easily watch in that big skyscrapers in and around Dubai while you're taking your walk. So in this way, the modern technology is also being involved, and in the same way, we are also looking for not utilizing more space, because Dubai is one of those pioneers in terms of acoustics, where they have already moved leap years ahead of other countries. The way Dubai is implementing its infrastructure, the way they have been planning it, their city, is way ahead of other countries, because they are not putting more emphasis on land occupation. In fact, they are not depending on land, to be very honest with you. They are actually putting more emphasis so that they can make in more big skylines, more big skyscrapers. Based on that, a large chunk of population can be living in a small stretch of land. So the upcoming skyscrapers which Dubai government has for the upcoming years is going to be something that is even outside our imaginations. Some of the projects are actually that I would say astonishing to look at. Now the next thing is, as I told you, that is actually the main thing that we were doing this session for. That is the breaking down the barriers, or to overcome this ethnocentrism and fostering newer cultural understanding. So one of the best ways to overcome this problem of this over superiority complex that we call as ethnocentrism and foster cultural understanding is by exposing ourselves to different culture. It is very important to amalgamate or to associate yourself with newer and newer cultures. The more cultures will be accustomed to, or the more cultures we are going to amalgamate with, we will be able to take in their ideas and their formulations of life, not only in terms of infrastructure, not only in terms of technology, but even in the general way of life. Like, say, if we look at back at our Indian history, our kings, our rulers who were there before this occupation of this Arabic people, this Mughal people, or this European societies, I'm talking before that, when we had our indigenous kings, they had this custom of marrying queens from other territories. It was not only done to increase their territory, but it was also a process followed at that time to come in close association with newer cultures. It is because of that that we were in close associations with culture that was so far from our continent, and there was a huge propagation of Indian culture into other continents also. That is why you see even today, if you go to the Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, you go to Cambodia, you go to Myanmar, you will see there are still traces of Hindu culture. It is just because that Hindu is generally not a religion, it is actually about a community and our way of life. This Indian way of life was the Hindu community. So you can see that our influences can be seen in many of these countries. It is just because of the close association that our earlier kings had followed, which was again stopped or derailed to a great extent when we were taken by these foreign occupiers for this 1,000 years. So it is just India has just passed through this 1,000 years of humiliation. If we just take into account this 500 years by the British and another 500 years by this, I would say, Mughal or these Arabic races. So before that, we had a much rich history, and we actually comprised of more than 30% of the world GDP. So India was that big. So other countries used to look up to India the way we look up to USA today. So, but see the state that we are in today. But we are. It's good to see that there are certain propagations, there are certain movements being done in our country. There are new laws being implemented so that we can take back our people to the way of life which our culture used to actually believe in. It is the way Indians are living today is generally not the way which a Hindu community or an Indian civilization was formulated for. There are so many influences that we have been fallen under. This Arabic influences has come in, this Western civilizations influences has come in, and we to some extent have started to forget our own culture. And the conflicts has also come in. That we Indians, though being living in the same country, living under the same territory, we still quarrel among one another, telling about our state to be better than the other state or our religion to be better than the other religion. But we forget that our only identifiable identity should be we are Indians, and it is the only way in which we can break down these concepts of ethnocentrism and move towards a better cultural understanding. So, based upon this, you know that the future of human settlement and the way in which human civilization can be evading itself from falling in this demographic trap can be formulated. So, the
Yes.
challenges that are posed by the demographic trap and cultural ecology are very high and very significant. But it also presents us certain opportunities for innovation and progress in the field of human settlements. So, one key challenge is the need to balance population or the growth with the environmental sustainability, where we are actually shifting towards more sustainable living practices. And the development of newer technologies will be helping us to support these practices that we are talking about. So, another important challenge which we would like to conclude with is the need to foster the greater cultural understanding and respect between different communities. This is a big problem that is happening in not only in India but in many countries over the world, where a lot of tribes or a lot of communities are living together under the same country. So this idea of respect with one another, that needs to be more propagated by our education system, which I believe, and this can be achieved through education and awareness raising initiatives being taken by the government, so that people can address others culture in a more respectable tone. And for that only education is the right medium, I believe, because education will help us to actually know other religions, other cultures, rather than just falling in the trap of having our own biased conceptions about them on which we act. So, in this way, we believe that there will be a concerted effort from the governments around us in building a more civil society organization. And for that, the other stakeholders of our society should also promote social justice and equality so that we can move towards a more strengthened future. I'm not only talking about India as a country, but world as a living space. So that's where I'd like to conclude today. So now we are going to know a bit about you learning this session and your feedback on it. So Just try in so that let me check whether your mic is active now.
Actually, this was a pretty fast
Your voice
session,
is
in
not
my
coming for
opinion.
some reason. Let me check. I'm just
Hello?
trying through a different medium so that I can get your voice.